Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did.
Welcome back to Take the Leap. So excited to be back for another week of fun conversations with my friend Ash. Hello.
Yes. Hello.
I'm so happy we are back. And this is a conversation that you and I have already had many times. So we're just going to rehash this conversation for other people to listen in their earlobes about this. So this came back up for me today, actually. I was working on a proposal with a friend. Her and I are going to try and go in on a client together. And I sent her the proposal I put together. I did math and figured out, how much to charge them. And she sent it back with one comment that said, "Oh my gosh, you are so undercharging. What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. I am." And it's embarrassing because I talk about this all the time, about how you need to charge what you're worth and make sure that you're charging enough to, cover everything, and you get to set your own prices and all yada, yada, yada. And yet here I am still trying to break the habit of undercharging myself. And so, I could have felt bad about that, but I don't. And I'm just learning from it, right? And why does this, Ashlan, this is a general question I'm asking to you or the universe. Why does this keep coming back for me? Why do I have such a hard time charging what I'm worth? What do you think? Are you in the same boat? Do you relate at all?
I do relate. I feel like it's always a hard game, right? Because it's like you want the business, you are trying to set yourself up for success, and quite frankly, I think you and I have talked about this before, is that raising prices should be normal. Things should be, things in our life around us get more expensive every year. Why are we not kind of adjusting our rates and everything like that to go along with it? And I do find that hard. I mean, I think I experienced that earlier this year, where at the beginning of the year, I basically looked at everybody who I had quoted last year and reached back out to them, and it was like, hey, do you want to work together again? And so, somebody did say yes, but it's at the same price as last year. So I was just like, oh, do I adjust it with the idea that we might lose business, or do I just keep it the same? And so, I just kept it the same. But I do think that we frequently do that because we're so worried about not getting the job or getting the business. And I do think women have this problem more often than not, when, not even with our own businesses, with going into our career in other ways. I know that I did this very often where I'm like, oh, this is a way better job because I'm making more than I was at the previous place, but didn't negotiate, probably could have gotten more money, and didn't do certain things like that. So I do think it's a common problem that we have to get over, kind of the fear base of loss and not landing a client to have them at that rate. And then I also be really realistic about my rates. Especially you and I both work with nonprofits. I kind of have different tiers of pricing based on what size of the organization they are. Are they completely volunteer run? Do they not have, a whole bunch of budget and money? Are they bringing in multiple millions a year? Was it a grant, bad grant funding year or whatnot? And just being super realistic about that. But like knowing what you're worth is super important, and also knowing what your the market will bear. Because there are some folks that I've heard, they're like, I charge $1,000 an hour. And I'm like, that's not what my people would take. So,
Exactly. And maybe if you're contracting with big companies and they have that budget, great. But
yeah.
I guess you bring up a good point, knowing your target audience. If you're working with nonprofits, I can guarantee you $1,000 an hour is not going to fly with the proposal. But yeah, I think kind of just to kind of spiral off of that, I think a couple things. One, I feel like sometimes maybe it's just imposter syndrome that's playing into this, but I do agree with you. There is definitely that mindset of lack of, what happens if I lose this client? What happens if I don't get this job? What happens if, whatever, if I raise my prices, they won't want to work with me anymore, which actually has happened before. I have raised my prices in a very minuscule way, and it threw one client over the edge, and they cut me off. And you know what? It was great because I did not need that client was very high maintenance. I didn't need them anyway, so it worked out fine. Anyway, back to my original point though. So there's that side of it, and the other side for me is sometimes I don't know that I fully always believe that I'm doing a good job, even though my clients are like, oh, you're doing great. You're doing fantastic. I love the work. I love this. And I'm getting positive feedback. But it's like I almost in my head can justify all the reasons why, oh, well, that wasn't me. That was just a lucky day. Or, like I just had, I had a lot of coffee that day and I was feeling good. And so I just wrote, really creatively, but I can't do that all the time. So why would I get paid, or, it was luck that social media campaign did so well, even though I put a lot of time and strategy and effort into it. And it's like, it's almost like I have to convince myself that, oh, but in a normal world where you weren't so lucky, you wouldn't get this. So, it's fine. Just, don't raise your rates. And I don't quite know how to fully get out of that mindset, but, I know I can't be the only one who struggles with that.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's just to remind yourself over and over again, maybe put a sticky note somewhere that just says, raise your rates, ask for more. You deserve more. Yeah. I have it as a calendar reminder to, like, in November, start talking to everybody about, like, hey, here's what the Social Security Administration says inflation is going to be like next year. So we are absolutely increasing by that dollar amount. Yeah, make that note. Tell them in November.
I'm writing that down right now.
Yeah. Yep. Tell them that. And I think if the feedback is we can't afford that, then we go back to the scope of work and be like, okay, then what comes off the scope? What comes off this list? And not everybody is amenable to it. Sometimes you get like a negotiated blended rate. Like I actually saying this out loud from 2022 to 2023, because like that was my first like in it full-time year. I did not do the rate raise. So when I had that conversation between 23 and 24, I actually went back to folks and I was like, okay, so here is if I did what, if I got the bump between those, and then this is like, here's what your rate increase should be, what is acceptable in this range. And I did have somebody kind of come in, like, they're like, we can't afford that much, but we can kind of meet you halfway, like halfway between those. So it still ended up being more than I was making, but it was just a good conversation. And I think what was really nice about going into the conversation with them about it was they were like, this by no means devalues the work that you're doing for us. Like, we really, really do want to keep you. We just also, like, had all of these other things come in.
Yeah.
And so you shouldn't always just assume that it's going to be a no, or that it's going to be like filled with animosity. Sometimes it's a really
Right.
great conversation to have. And actually, they built into my contract that they could like flex some months based on if they were going to have more, like less capacity on their team, or just more content and more stuff that's gonna come through. They were like, hey, can we just like turn this on as long as we give you? I was like, as long as you give me like a couple of weeks notice so that we can slate it in, we can absolutely expand or bring. I know, Tori, you and I have talked about like, if I really need it, I can just pull you in,
Mhm.
like, and subcontract and cross contract. So that is another plug for having other people who know what you know how to do kind of in your close circle and in your warehouse. No, not competitors. We are collaborators
Exactly. I love that.
in this
Collaborate.
space. Yeah. Don't see other people who do the same thing as you as competition. They are probably your best ally for being able to pass stuff back and forth when it makes sense. So yeah, but
Agreed.
it takes a long time to say those things. I don't think you're the only one, and I do think it is those reminders. Um, and then yeah, maybe I'm just saying this out loud. Maybe we should have like a wins episode, or because we like, we know that we just like go through the waves and like finish stuff and don't really
Yeah.
celebrate the campaign that went wild or did really well. So yeah.
We should. I would love that. We should also have our listeners send in their wins and we should read their wins.
Yes.
So if you guys are interested in that, if you're listening to this right now, maybe we should just start collecting wins from everybody and give them a
Yeah.
little shout out on some of our episodes because I feel like that would be so fun.
Hmm.
Because we
I
do, we
love
need to
that.
celebrate each other. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so if you want to send in a win that you had this week, please email us at aloha at taketheleap-today.com. Or you can DM us on Instagram, LinkedIn,
Hmm. Yeah.
or go to our website and fill out a visitor feedback form, whatever you want to do. Whatever is easiest for you to communicate with us. And we
Yes.
will give your win a shout. I love that. I feel like that's all part of our community and, women supporting women. Like we should definitely be talking and celebrating our wins. I just don't feel like we do that enough. I also wanted
No.
to spiral off of what you said about your clients. It's always a good conversation to have regardless because I think the thing is too is that maybe they don't know that you're not getting paid enough or that it's time for you to get a raise because I feel like especially with what you and I do specifically in our service-based businesses where we contract with other companies, we're not looked at as employees because we're not.
Hmm.
And so it's not really it depends on what their relationship is like working with contractors and working with people outside of their employees. If they've done it a bunch of times, then they kind of know that, contractors set their own rates and they can raise their rates whenever they want, things like that. But if they've never worked with a contractor before, they might not even know that it's an appropriate conversation to start having if you work with them long term. And
Hmm.
so sometimes I think it can be educational too. And maybe you have that conversation and say, oh, you know what? I didn't even think to budget for that. I'm so sorry. Can we meet in the middle? And then maybe next year, I can plan better for it next year. Assuming that they really want to keep working with you. So I think you're right. It's just about educating and saying, these are my rates. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm allowing. This is what I'm not allowing. And if you don't want to budge, if you're like, no, I can't continue to work with this client at this rate, it has to be this or nothing, that's okay too,
Hmm.
and I think the more confident we can be about our pricing and the more we can show up with that proof of why we are so
Hmm.
valuable, I think that's just going to help us move forward. I don't know. Maybe I need to talk about this with my therapist too.
Yes. Yes. That
We
might
should
be
have a
one to
whole
do for next.
episode. We should have a whole episode on how therapy is great for entrepreneurs.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Just having the space to decompress and like process things. I mean, that is part of, one of the things that I love about doing this conversations with you is just like we get to bring what a struggle is and like process through it together, because sometimes as an entrepreneur you feel like it's only you that is
Yeah.
going through this, because most of us start out as solos, and every once in a while, like I will go to my team and I'm like, okay, am I just crazy, or is this like, this is really a thing, that should, should it not bother me, or should it bother me? And then they're good, like also gut check silos of like, no, that's fucked up. Like that shouldn't
Yeah.
happen, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
It's so
important.
nice because you get that naturally on a team, right? Like you have your
Mhm.
coworkers, and even if you're in a position of leadership, you usually have other people around that you can confide in and talk to and ask questions or get advice from. But if you are a solo entrepreneur specifically, or just starting out and it's literally all just on you before you hire a
Mhm.
team, it can be such a challenge. I get stuck in my head so much about the littlest things, whether it's, pricing or a project or proposal. And, if I just sometimes, when I have someone to bounce things off of, it just makes it so much better. You and I have had so many of those conversations. Some of the guests on our podcast are friends of ours that I've texted and been like, hey, what would you do in this situation? And vice versa. Um, Allison comes to my house all the time, from
Mhm.
Allison Martin Studios, and she's constant. Her and I are constantly comparing notes, or I have a customer service question. How would you handle this? Or and it's just so nice to have people in your circle. If you're an entrepreneur, I think the best advice I could give somebody just starting out is get yourself some friends who are also entrepreneurs. Surround
Mhm.
yourself with people who are in that. Even if they don't do the same thing you do, that's okay. Find people who run businesses, who are solopreneurs, who are just starting out on their own, who have been doing this forever. Get a variety and then talk to them all the time. Ask them about their businesses. Start talking about
Mhm.
yours. Get advice. Get feedback. You don't have to take it all, but I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, some of the people I talk to the most today, including you, Ashlyn, are people who are business owners, and it's been so nice to have that in my friendship group as
Mhm.
well, because it's such a weird, I don't know. I had a more perfect way of ending that thought, and I don't
That's
know. I don't
okay. I
know.
have something that I need to remember to share with you. It was a podcast trailer that I came across at the podcast movement, but it was
Ooh,
all about
okay.
like having like weird coworkers and stuff like that. So I sent it to my lovely former weird coworkers that I worked with. They're not weird. They're just, we enjoy each other, and there were
Yeah,
some funny parts in it. But yeah, as an entrepreneur, you don't have like a coworker. I can tell my husband who's in the other room things. I can talk to my dog. I can, it's hard, and that is part of the reason. Bringing it all back, that we are creating the Take the Leap course and the Take the Leap community and having these conversations is so that people don't feel isolated, so that you have a place that you can turn to for questions, so that we can say, yeah, if I had to do that all over again, I would not, I would scratch that and cancel that and not do that or reimagine this. And it's a fun place to be at the other side, where we're a little further along, but we still, as you can tell by the questions about pricing and charging what you're worth, we still fumble, and it's always going to be a learning curve. And things could change tomorrow, and we're just going to have to adjust
absolutely.
for it, for that too.
Well, Ashlyn, this has been a really great conversation. I needed it. Apparently, I needed a therapy session today, so thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
If any of our listeners have anything they want to add to this conversation, feel free to email us, DM us. Make sure to, if you're not already following us, make sure you do that, like and subscribe. And we would also love 5 stars. That just helps us. That helps boost our podcast up there. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful listeners. We're just having so much fun on this podcast, and we can't wait to chat with you in your ears again very soon.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.